Hey, welcome back everyone. It is now July 2nd of 2020, and ever since the very end of the Skywalker saga, a lot of fans have been very skeptical about the future of Star Wars when it comes to the new TV shows, the new Star Wars trilogy of films, the new books, novels, and comics, and let's not forget about the video games like Squadrons, is that a lot of fans are just still very, skeptical of how Disney's going to treat everything moving forward. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel for future Star Wars content. Now, you guys may recall that back in November of 2017, this was a very interesting month because back during that month was just a month or so before The Last Jedi released in December by Rian Johnson, and it was during that earnings call by Bob Iger and others that he unveiled that Rian Johnson will be developing a new Star Wars trilogy of films, even before they even knew how successful or how much a failure The Last Jedi was going to be. And it really seemed like poor judgment on Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy's part, mostly Kathleen Kennedy per se, because she is the one who hired Johnson and who actually gave pretty much, the others, like Bob Iger, the idea to allow Johnson to take on a new Star Wars trilogy. And ever since 2017, a lot of fans have always been wondering what in the world has been going on with the Johnson trilogy. Now, as we went over a couple of months ago, Bob Chaypek split the trilogy into 3 separate Star Wars movies, and that his trilogy is really up in the air as we speak. At least the original version of Rian Johnson's trilogy, of all the concepts and ideas that he created before getting to the actual script that were put into the trash can. Now, what's really intriguing about all of this is that Johnson was really going to take a way different turn for Star Wars that I think would have been for the worst, not just for the Star Wars community, but for Star Wars in spirit. Now, with that being said, of course, with both Disney and Lucasfilm now finished with The Rise of Skywalker and the entire sequel trilogy, they are now primarily focused on their new Star Wars universe in general. It's explained that Bob Chapek and Bob Iger have been working together as a team in order to create a better future for the Star Wars brand moving forward. It's explained that recently Bob Chapek split apart the Rian Johnson Star Wars trilogy into 3 separate Star Wars films, and that in one of the films, Rian Johnson had actual original plans in his new movies that were going to be quite controversial to the Star Wars fans. Now, it's noted that even though the script was not developed, Rian Johnson created concepts of what his films would entail, and of course that he was going to create a brand new power in a new galaxy that would be his own version of the Force itself, which already sounds like a major mistake. It's noted that Rian Johnson's new take on his power would be called, of course, stronger than the Force itself, and that would actually be called the Vitality, where the Vitality was going to be Rian Johnson's own version of the Force that would deliver its own power to a handful of new warriors that would be far different than the Jedi and would use more primitive weapons in this new take on Star Wars that would draw away from lightsabers in action. Now, the Vitality would be a god in a sense that would hold a consciousness in Rian's new trilogy that would give the will for these new warriors to create peace throughout their own galaxy. Rian wanted to introduce a Star Wars galaxy that would be less technological and more spiritual in a sense, where it was going to involve more natural ways of transportation rather than starfighters and more simple weapons than blasters and sabers. Let me just say one thing right here is that this sounds like something that you would see on the Sci-Fi Channel and just deciding to throw the Star Wars label on top of it. It just doesn't make much sense to me. To actually have the idea, and to actually even go through the idea of getting rid of the Force and creating your own take on the Force and calling it the Vitality and making it like this god in a sense with a consciousness, kind of giving these warriors the will to protect themselves and the entire galaxy. That in itself sounds like that Rian just wanted to do exactly what George did from the very beginning and kind of doing things different, which I really don't respect that. If we look at Rian Johnson, it seems like that what he did with The Last Jedi was pretty bad, but this to me I think would have been pretty much the worst case scenario, and I'm really glad that Chapek really put it into the trash can and put an end to it all. Now, the thing about Johnson is that he wanted to step away from Star Wars being so technological. He wanted to focus more on a spiritual galaxy where their ways of transportation were going to be more natural. How were they going to do this? I have no idea. Maybe their bodies go through hyperspace or something crazy and wild like that. I don't know. But he wanted to find more natural ways of transportation for the characters in his stories, rather than using actual starfighters going through hyperspace. This could very well maybe have something to do with, going through one dimension to another, perhaps. Who knows? All these crazy things, we have seen this with Looper, which was also created by Rian Johnson. You can see what he was trying to, incorporate into this new trilogy, and how he actually wanted to draw away from these new warriors not using lightsabers and more primitive weapons. I'm not quite sure how I really feel about this. I mean, at the end of the day, what you really could have done is that you could have just created a little side story in the same exact Star Wars galaxy that would actually be within the George Lucas universe, and you could just focus on a specific region that maybe, had nothing to do with the Jedi and these own warriors, and also dealt with the Force. That would have been a little bit more proper. But this sounds like it comes out of, pretty much out of left field, and just surprises me that Johnson would even think about doing something like this. But anyways, guys, drop a comment below. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.